Hello everyone and welcome back to EDCNC. My name is Samuel, and yes, this is the third time this week I've uploaded. How about that? Hope you enjoyed it. Sunday's video was more of a slingshot video. Wednesday's video was an unboxing, and now Saturday's video is going to be a review, or Friday, whatever day I upload this. So maybe we can keep that going on the channel. If I can find time to record and make these videos, I'm going to keep pumping them out. Channel's not been doing what I want it to lately, and that's partially my fault because I haven't been uploading. So hopefully we can get on top of that, and hopefully we can get things rolling. But that's not what you clicked on this video for. You clicked on this video for the Benchmade Redoubt. Let's check it out. Oh, the Benchmade Redoubt. Now this is kind of a branch off of the Benchmade Bug Out, the Tagged Out, the Shootout, and one more that I can't remember. Call it the Clapped Out. I don't remember. Here's a picture of it and what the name of it is. But yes, the Redoubt. Now some would call this a predecessor to the Griptillian, and it pretty much is. But this is from the black class, their more tactical lineup. Benchmade has their, I think it's 4 lineups: the gold class, the blue class, the black class, and the Hunt series. So now that you know a little bit about this knife and you kind of know what to expect, let's go over the specifications, and then we'll talk a little bit about the good, the bad, and whether you should get this or not. All right, here we have some quick size comparisons. Here it is up against the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Not too far off from the size of this knife, and actually the blade stock thickness. You can see the Paramilitary 2 is just a smidgen bit thicker. Here it is up against the Benchmade 940. Again, blade stock on these two. Here it is up against the Benchmade Bug Out. Here it is up against the Spyderco Delica, the QSP Penguin, and the best knife ever made, the Kaiser T1. So let's just go over a few specifications real quick. First things first, the weight. The weight is 3.6 ounces. It's got these Gravery handles, which we'll talk more about in a minute, but that keeps this thing really light. The blade length is 3.55 inches. The handle length is coming in at a whopping 4.75 inches. You almost have 5 inches of a handle to hold on to here. And the overall length is 8.29 inches. Has a high flat ground CPM D2 blade. Let me stop right there. CPM D2 is not D2. CPM D2 is a powder formed version of D2 that is closer to like your XHP, and it seems like there was one more steel that comes very similarly close to the edge retention and the overall, edge holding capabilities and the toughness and so on and so forth. But if you want to gauge this by a more well-known steel, XHP is pretty close. It has a thumb stud deployment, which works very well. The only thing about the thumb studs is it's a little bit in the cutting path, but not to the point where, it's a big hindrance. So we talked about the blade. Let's talk a little bit about the handle. This has a polymer. It's going to be either their Gravery or their CF Elite handles with, it's almost integral. It looks like it's a screw together construction with almost a back cap on it, as you'll see here in the B-roll, kind of like a turtle shell or something. It has partial liners that are nested, and I say partial not in a bad way. I can't remember what Benchmade calls these liners. They don't go down the full length of the knife, but structurally there's nothing wrong with the way they're doing it. It has a T8 pivot, and here's the crazy thing, T6 body screws and pocket clip screws. What in the world, Benchmade? I mean, yeah, T8 pivot, great. But T6 body screws, I mean, most of the time it's just the pocket clip screws that are T6, but T6 body screws, like, what are you doing? With that being said, speaking of the pocket clip being T6 screws, the pocket clip is great. This is a full loop over deep carry pocket clip. So this thing will hide way down deep in your pocket. Now that we've talked about the blade, we've talked about the handle, let's talk a little bit about ergonomics. This thing is great, just like the Griptillian, what it was loved for. It's got that big hand-filling grip that feels great with minimal hot spots. Now, I didn't say no hot spots, I said minimal, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But this thing feels great in the hand. The jimping is where it needs to be. Wouldn't hurt to have a little bit further up on the blade. but still the jimping is in a good spot. And this texture on the bottom here and on the back that wraps around really locks this thing into your hand. This will be a great workhorse knife, except for one thing that, again, I'll talk about in just a second. That pocket clip does not cause a hot spot, surprisingly. That's something that a lot of pocket clips, a lot of companies get wrong nowadays. This does great. So what was I talking about with saying there was almost no hot spots? Well, the thing feels great except for the inside of the scales. They did not like round this off at all on the inside of this Grivery or whatever polymer kind of handle it is. So you can, listen, you hear that? That's really sharp. And you know, you're not going to cut yourself on it, but in all honesty, it should not be that sharp on the edges of this. Now, if you really like this knife, you really like the design, and you want to go buy it, okay, that's fine. Just take your little sandpaper and knock it down. This is not my model, so I'm not going to do that. But just thought you would maybe want to know that, because the inside of these liners are very sharp for some reason. Why in the world they didn't knock that down, I have no idea. But other than that little spot, everything else feels good. The pocket clip, the jimping, everything feels great as far as ergonomics go. How about cutting performance? Man, this blade is super slicey. Now, it's not exactly bug out thin, just a little bit thicker, but boy, the way they have this almost full flat grind, it's a high flat grind. There's a little bit of a swedge up here on the top, but boy, this thing is gonna tear through some material, or more like glide through some material. And saying that, this does have a little bit of a toothy edge from Benchmade, but Benchmade seems to have gotten past their quality control issues. For a long time, I remember actually the first nicer knife I ever bought, Benchmade 940. When I bought mine, the action I think was okay on it. The edge was not great at all, and there were just quality control issues with it. Of course, you know, being that I know what I'm doing now, I can fix most of those quality control issues on my own. But that shouldn't be the case when you're paying this much for a knife, and the same for this. But they seem to have really stepped it up on their quality control. So I've talked a little bit about the ergonomics, about the blade shapes, about stuff like that. Let's say what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and then we'll move on to my overall thoughts, whether I think it's worth it or not. So I have it wrote down, the goods and the bads. Let's go over the goods. The ergos and grip. The ergos and grip are great, man. This knife is going to be a great workhorse, especially if you knock down that little sharp spot on the inside of the scale. This feels great. It's like the Griptillian. It feels your hand, and it's going to be one of those knives that no matter who buys it, they're going to like it for how comfortable it is in the hand. The next thing, the pocket clip. I don't think I've ever seen a pocket clip like this from Benchmade. That is great. The loop over construction really hides this deep down in your pocket, and it doesn't look scary at all. Now, when you pull it out, this knife can be a little bit intimidating, but it is from their black class. Who cares? But yeah, this pocket clip really sets it really deep down in your pocket. Helps out a lot with concealment. The blade shape is great. Just like I spoke of, it's got that high flat grind with that swedge, and it tears right through materials. The edge was really good on this when I got it too. The action is great. It's Benchmade, smooth. Again, not like their quality control years where the action would be kind of iffy. With a lot of blade play, this one has good action. Could use a tightening up, maybe a little bit of Loctite, but other than that, the action's good. The weight on it is great. The balance is good. Right there around the pivot is where the balance is, as you can see. To 3.5 inches of blade length, that weight matches up perfectly. If you're an ounce an inch guy, this thing's awesome. And then the last thing, texturing. This thing is not going anywhere. When you grip down on this is in your hand, and I really like that. All these things combined make this a great everyday carry knife and a great knife to work with. But now come the bads. So what do I have to say bad about it? Well, there's no flat spot where the pocket clip is. If you look under that pocket clip, there is no flat spot for it to rest on. So this is going to tear your pants up going in and out of the pocket. Can you fix that? Yes. Should you have to? No. They should have put a flat spot right there. Now, this pocket clip is reversible, so it's ambidextrous. I know they would have had to put a flat spot on the other side as well, but they could have found a workaround to make this something that, you know, can slide in and out of the pocket easily. And now the three main things that were the worst about this knife was the sharp edges on the inside. That's unacceptable, honestly. I mean, if you really like the design of this knife, like I said, buy it, knock it down with sandpaper, you're good. But it should come from Benchmade that way already. They're charging $180 for this knife, and I think they could put a little more effort into knocking that edge down. Another thing that really kind of Doesn't bother me, but I know it does bother some people because that's why a lot of them didn't like the original bug out scales. Check out this flex. I'll put some B-roll in there. Look at how much these handles flex. You can almost get them to touch. It's insane. Now, this stuff is so strong, it is not going to break. That's not going to matter. But it is kind of, disconcerting to see them stretch that much. And then last but not least, the T6. I'm going to put this knife down for a minute. What in the world, Benchmade? T6 body screws? I can't tell you how many people, 90%, if not 99, if not 100% of the knife community would say, why in the world are you doing T6 body screws? And I totally agree with that. They're very usable. I mean, you can work around it, but they're so easy to strip. Why not use T8? That's my only question. I'm not a knife maker. I'm not a knife designer. Maybe there's a good reason for it, but I don't understand it. I mean, a lot of the times we let it slip when it's just T6 on the pocket clip screws, and that can be frustrating enough. But why in the world would you make the entire body of the knife T6 screws? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I'm just kind of pointing out like that's ridiculous. So maybe next time, T8 Benchmade, if you're listening to this. But what are my overall thoughts? What do I think overall about this knife? I think it's a home run. I think 180 bucks, CPM D2, the blade shape, everything like that. It would be better around $160, but inflation, this economy, I get it. And it's also got that butterfly tax on it. So it is a great knife. The main thing I would suggest is if you are going to buy it, be prepared to knock those inside edges down. If those inside edges are done right, you're good. Home run. You can work around the T6. You can work around these other problems I've talked about. But that right there is going to be frustrating, especially if you use this knife a lot. So hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, please click like, comment, subscribe, all those wonderful things. Have a great day, and God bless.